Are we back? Is the stream reconnected? Maybe we refresh this. Oh, and there goes my music as well, I think. No? Music's back? Oh, Smurfton, hello, in chat. We're back? We're actually back? Oh, I hope that doesn't happen again. I don't know at what point it cut out. Could you hear me again in between? Ripstream, we're back. Happy birthday, thank you very much. Having a bit of scuffles at the street, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't even an internet drop, there was an issue with the power. My screens both cut out for a second. Luckily the computer didn't full on turn off, but obviously the router restarted, so internet was reset for a minute there. Good gosh. I've completely lost track of where I was there. Anyway, Smurfton, how are you doing? Good day today? I had a good day for me. Besides the tech issues in between. Oh dear. What was I talking? I was talking about. I just talked about this video, I think. Yeah, I was just talking about the money video. Can't remember what I was saying there, to be honest. So, next one, I suppose, the Lit RPG Dungeon Core video. I'm completely thrown off my stride. Good day, it's only just started trying out working from home in my new place. Ah, nice. Congratulations on getting a new place. From someone who's done a little bit of house hunting not too long ago, it is a struggle. Good God. But yes, Lit RPG, building a dungeon core. As I said, I restrained myself for a good while from making another Lit RPG video. There was a strong temptation to just make a dozen of them before I ever got into any regular world building. And I could have become a Lit RPG focused channel, honestly. There's enough content there for me to focus on that niche specifically. But I decided to be a little bit more varied. Might have been a mistake, looking at the viewer numbers, frankly. So this most recent one's actually done pretty decent compared to some of the others. More views than usual. Couldn't tell you why, no one leaves any comments, so I've got no feedback to try and improve from, but no. Dungeon Core is a fun subgenre. One of the first ever Lit RPGs I actually read, Blue Core, which kind of was one of the two works that got me into the genre, was a Dungeon Core story, and yeah, I've played War for the Overworld quite a lot, the game that's in the background on this thumbnail, and then finding out that there's a genre of story that's all about it was actually very, very fun. The video itself, I'm definitely going to do more in that style. Maybe not necessarily... Well, yeah, definitely there will be more Lit RPG specific videos, but also just in general videos in the style of like, hey, here's this particular trope and how you can use it and build it and stuff like that. The Magitech video was kind of close to that in terms of here's this world building element and what you can do with it, but I do want to do more kind of tutorial style, I suppose. My videos are often more of a here's information about this subject style of video. That was really the goal when I started out with my videos, actually. I kind of wanted to present them in a way of like, if you were interested in world building or writing, and you decided, hey, I want to know about this thing, what information would you find if you started researching? Because I see a lot of people come into like the world building subreddits or stuff like that, and asking a lot of the same sort of similar beginner questions of, what does this thing mean? How do I do this? How can I put this into my world? And a lot of the answers are out there, but they're scattered across various YouTube videos and Reddit threads and blog posts on all sorts of websites. So my videos are really kind of focused on, if you are just interested in this idea in general, what would you find if you were to do the research yourself, you know? Instead of doing 4 or 5 hours of research, here's a 10-20 minute video that explains the basic idea to you. The premise has kind of evolved a little bit from that as I've actually started making the videos and found out what works and what doesn't, and what I'm good at writing and presenting and what is more difficult. I've kind of mixed up the formula a bit more, but the general gist of I want to show people their options rather than tell them here is the right and wrong way to do it remains. I might do a little bit of that in the future. I do want to do kind of case study videos, being like, here is a piece of work that I enjoy and here's why I enjoy it. You know, here's the world building or storytelling aspect it did particularly well, and how can you remove that from the original work and put it in somewhere else. You know, how do you take it out of its context? But that's for the future. For the moment I've got plenty of ideas for the next few videos, and I am only making them every other week. I don't think I can put them closer together than that, to be honest, because it does take a fair amount of work to put a video together. Even with my video style, which is one where it's just me talking, there's no real editing over the video, it still takes a fair bit of time. Maybe as I get better, I can either increase the amount of editing in my videos or increase the rate at which I upload them. But for the time being, I've got enough projects on my plate, I don't want to overwork myself. And then the most recent video, the Caves, Tunnels, Mushrooms, World Building Underground video. It's a simple one, I think, compared to a lot of the others, you know. I can freely admit that some of them I was more excited for than others, some of them I put more work into, I suppose, than others. You know, the Fantasy Geography one I was really into, the Your Story Doesn't Have to Be a Novel one I was really into, whereas like the Money one and the Underground one were just kind of, yeah, this is useful information, but it doesn't get me terribly excited to talk about it. I love reading about it and I love world building it myself, especially Undergrounds. I'm probably going to do a whole live stream several hours long at some point in the future, all about the stuff that I thought about when it comes to world building, Underrealms and stuff like that. But for a video, and I need to get the whole overview into 10 to 20 minutes, I kind of condensed things down a little bit. This is one of those that will probably get sub-videos in the future, you know? Like, Magitech doesn't need any follow-up, but Lit RPG does. Money doesn't need any follow-up, but World Building Underground, there's going to be videos about how to use, you know, the verticality of an underground city, and how to do politics between underground and above ground videos, nation. That one might get rolled into a different video though, but I've got in my notes about how multiple dimensions and stuff like that changes the nature of politics and world building and nation interactions. And I think, while they're not another dimension, having an Underrealm definitely has similar kind of features to that. You know, the actual practical differences, even if the metaphysical difference isn't the same at all. Yeah, that is all of the videos. I think the thumbnails haven't really improved over time, but I am getting quicker at making them. I use Canva to make my thumbnails. I need to take some more pictures at some point. It's kind of my picture taking ability within VC phase is somewhat limited. I have got stuff set up so I can try and record myself in VR chat and use that for some better pictures. You can see here I've reused the pose on 2 different videos here and here. I try to take a new picture for each video, but there's only so many poses you can do with Elite Motion Tracker. The hand tracking is limited, and I have to put the thing on my desk, so I have to keep my hands where the camera from below can see what gesture I'm making. I wish I could mount it to the top of my screen and have it there instead, but for some reason it just refuses to track from up there. I put it there, when the tracking on, I look on the Leap Motion software and it's like managing to catch where my hands are, but it will not send the information over to VC phase for some reason. It only does it when I have it flat on my desk. So I've just kind of been stuck with limited range of motion for the time being. Maybe something I can fix in the future. Besides that, this kind of thumbnail style of like one color in the background, I don't like it, but I don't necessarily know what else I could do, realistically. I'm not an artist, as I've said. I make these thumbnails in Canva, so it's just kind of, you know, find some relevant pictures. This is probably the worst one out of all of them. It's just a picture of a Ferengi with some Latinum, 2 different types of money, and then a PNG off of Google Images in the background. This is the worst thumbnail by far. I think this one's the funniest, just my face as a dungeon core, and possibly either this or this is my favorite out of them so far. I think these look the best. This thumbnail has a little secret. Down here where it says under cities, under realms, under dark, if you have the original and you zoom right in, you might see the little line just underneath that final U. It says under cities, under realms, under dark, underpaid. With a little joke I put in there for myself. Oh yeah, so that is my channel, my videos, and kind of what I think about them. Skill issue, to be honest, just simply half tracking. Of course, why didn't I think about that? From now on, my model will simply animate itself. I won't need the phone anymore. I will just sit here and I will have full 3D, full body tracking. I might be able to get something slightly better set up. I don't really want to spend the money on it, but the app I use for my face tracking, Vidario, did have an update recently where they included what's it called? Support for Mokopi, the little small trackers you can put on your arms and stuff to track them for full body. And supposedly they're pretty good. I don't know how good exactly, I'd have to research it, but the fact that there's support for them at all now is quite notable. But being trackers, they do cost a couple $100 if you want to buy a full set. So, skeptical on if I want to make that kind of investment for something I might or might not use. I think my efforts would be better spent in getting a good VR chat model. I've got one now that's functional, but it's this Vroid ported over into VR chat, and I'm not a great artist, and this Vroid is very, very basic, so it doesn't look terribly great. The proportions, which make sense here flat on screen, are terrible in 3D. But it's the best I've got for now. But yeah, more effort put into a nicer 3D model for the art chat, and more effort put into, well, ideally one day a live 2D model. It's kind of funny, honestly, because conventionally the progression is you start with your cheapest 2D model, and if you're successful and you take off, you then upgrade eventually to a full 3D setup. Meanwhile, I've made my 3D model myself, and I'm hoping that one day my channel will see the kind of success where I can go and get myself a really nice, fancy live 2D model. We're a long ways off from that yet, but, you know, one can dream. I've got plans for the future, things I'm going to try and do to kind of advertise myself, get my name out there a little bit more. We're almost halfway to Twitch affiliate now, which is really, really nice. And I'm looking forward to that, not so much because of the money. At 50 followers, I'm not going to be earning bank off of my Twitch account, but that's never the goal. What I want is access to the channel points, so I can put some fun redeems in there, and access to the emotes. Because, actually, if we go on over here, oh, there's some art from Murder Drones, love that show. Where did I put the thing? I swear I gave it a like. No, maybe I didn't. Profile, following... There we go. Look at these. I can't use them yet, unfortunately. I need to get affiliate for the emote slots, but I've got this lovely commission from Serenity of some nice, cute little emotes. There is me in 6 different forms, and they're just so absolutely adorable. I love these, and they were so cheap as well for the quality of work. I highly recommend Serenity on VGen if you got any emote needs yourself. But look at these, they're adorable. I think this one and this one in particular are my favorites out of all of them. They're just really, really cute. The slight shading over the face makes it look very ominous with the knife, and then just complete panic over here. It's very cute. The audio laugh is nice as well. Yeah, I'm super looking forward to being able to use these on stream. Hopefully sometime in the future. Alright, I don't know anymore how long we've been live because the stream was reset. I think we were at around about an hour before. I can probably check on my channel. Oh, let's mute that. I don't need to hear myself back. Where are we? But yeah, that was an hour before. Okay, we're an hour 20 in. I can quickly actually run back over. Let me switch over to here and bring this up. Since I do notice the viewer count has gone up, and since Smurfton did say hi earlier, let me bring back up my little presentation that I had for this here birthday stream. And run through it again. Just because I want to. Yes, me. Still hear that you are in the background. I mean, it's a live stream. I gotta be honest. As much as I adore some of the people whose live streams I watch, you know, I watch, like, my all-time Oshi, Juniper Actius. She's fantastic. I love her streams. I do not sit there and focus primarily on her live streams. Anything that's like several hours long, that's background content. It's always going to be background content. So I don't for a second begrudge anyone else putting me in the background. But yes, me, Aurea Opus, VTuber, writer, gamer. I was considering using the NB flag colors, but it fit better with the trans flag. Your artificial goddess creating alchemical worlds. That was a little bit. I wrote this in like a few minutes, which I'm quite pleased with because I think it's a nice little short bit. I'm also very glad that that final sentence fit specifically onto the last line. That worked out really, really well. The About Me page, and yeah, my birthday, tomorrow, 7th September, but I'm never ever ever gonna stream on the weekends. Okay, I shouldn't say that. I will stream on the weekends if there's like an event going on, or if someone asks me for a collab, but of my own accord, weekends are time off. Weekends are for relaxing. I could do some work on the weekend, but I will not make myself stream on the weekend because you've got to establish some kind of work-life balance, you know? Plus, 7th September is not just my, like, oh, here's the date I picked for streaming and VTubing. 7th September is my birthday, so obviously I'm gonna spend it doing other stuff. So, no stream on my birthday itself, but a stream today all about me. Shout out to Canva, the, like, editing website? I don't know what to call it. Shout out to Canva for the background on this. I just kind of went on there and went through their presentation presets and found this one, which has this lovely little art in the background. A nice aesthetic to it. I'm really not a graphic designer. I don't know if the YouTube thumbnails gave you a hint towards that at all, but my god. Art is just not within my skill set. I'm improving at it, I think, but it's definitely not something that I would consider a strength. Let me just take a sip. With that said, that is pretty much everything I wanted to go over today. I just kind of wanted to take a little time to chat about myself, to do the VTuber debut things that some people do, and I kind of skipped over because I wanted to just get straight into streaming. You know, I didn't do the whole build a Twitter presence and then bring them over to your stream for the debut. I don't know how people managed to pull that off, honestly, because I've got, at this point, like 60, 70 Twitter followers, and maybe 5 of those are people who are actually interested in my stuff. The rest of them, all artists trying to sell their services. I get regular DMs from various artists being like, hey, you interested in commissioning XYZ thing? I'm an artist specifically for VTubers. And it's like, first of all, you advertise crypto on your account and NFTs, and secondly, no thank you. I will go find artists myself when I need them. So yeah, I don't know how people manage to pop up those massive followings on Twitter, but I didn't do that. It didn't really fit into my plans. I went straight into streaming, skipped the debut, so I thought I'd take today to come back and go over some of that. It'll give me something that I can come back to in the future and be like, hey, let's rewatch the not debut but birthday stream once we have a bigger audience. I can cringe at my past self terribly. I hope not. I hope I don't cringe at my past self. I hope my future self is kind to me, but you never know. I think my future self will cringe terribly at my current voice, because definitely on my to-do list of things I want to get done is doing a little bit of voice training to get a more higher pitched voice. And yeah, I can only imagine that in, 2 years time, future me is going to listen to this and be like, oh god, what on earth did I sound like? But then I feel that already, when I'm doing video editing and I have to listen to myself back. Voice training stream? Oof. Maybe? Unlikely. I think that I'm willing to put myself through a great deal of embarrassment for chat's amusement, but a voice training stream, that sounds like it would be just a little bit too painful. But I won't rule it out entirely. I mean, I was just the other day watching a stream by another VTuber that I watch, Index Page, who's trans and does these kind of, every now and then she does these, like a podcast series, I suppose, where she brings people on to talk about various trans issues, and the recent stream was about voice training and how much a lot of people hate the sound of their voice, and you've just kind of got to overcome that and listen to yourself anyway if you want to get anywhere with changing it. So you know, if I were to end up possibly doing a collab with her and then doing some practice on stream, yeah, it's a possibility. Of my own accord, I wouldn't imagine so. I think I'll stick to my current repertoire. I'm quite happy with what I've got, with the spread off different things I've got at the moment between video games and writing / world building streams. Which does bring us to the next thing. It's maybe a little early to be ending stream. I think when I first started I was doing shorter streams, but I've tried to work my way up towards longer ones now. Yeah, see here, like hour 20, hour and a half streams, and now I'm doing quite regularly 3, 4, almost 5 hours. But we could stop here, or I mean, if anyone in chat has a suggestion on something they'd very much like me to see me do, we could play a little more UE4, we could play a little more Book of Hours, we could do a little writing and world building. Depends if anyone, you know, needs some entertainment for the rest of the evening. Otherwise, I'll call it a day early and enjoy my own evening and then enjoy my birthday tomorrow. What do you guys think? I know, Izzy, that you're in the same time zone as me, so it is like early to mid-evening for you. Follow your heart, I'd be happy to listen to something. I should have expected this when you ask people for their suggestions, and the answer is always, you do what makes you happy. And it's so well-intentioned and appreciated, and also not at all helpful towards actually getting getting a direction picked. Oh yeah, we can... Okay, let me switch over to here so I can hide some stuff I want to open up. I've recently learnt about the studio, I think, is it called studio mode? Yeah, studio mode on Streamlabs, which lets me change things on the stream without them being visible on the sort of live version. Like, I've got an edit page and a live page, and the edit doesn't go to live until I click the transition button, which is excellent. Lets me switch scene and set up everything without it being visible on stream. Because otherwise I have to switch to my, like, be right back screen and then just hope that all the things look correct when I switch over to the live scene, which sucks. This way I can change scene, make my edits, and then go over when I'm ready. So let me open some stuff up over here. Can't let you guys see into my Google Drive because there are spoilers for all sorts of things in here. Things we gotta keep hidden for the time being. Okay, so I think perhaps we can do a little bit of world building. It is, after all, one of my most beloved things. Specifically, let me switch that over. Can I have this a little bit bigger? No, don't move it. Like that. This. Okay, the program is being stubborn. Here we go. So, specifically, I recently did that stream where I talked about horror in progression fantasy. In fact, I can pull up the Obsidian Vault for that specifically. Is it visible here? Window capture, show me this? No. Game capture? I swear this thing doesn't work with game capture. But it's not showing up in the window capture. Okay, lovely. Fine, I won't show it then. But I did the, if you recall the stream at all, I did the little note-taking exercise on Obsidian Notes, talking about progression fantasy and horror within that genre, and how it's kind of at odds with the entire idea of horror, because it's all about the characters getting more powerful over time. And if you are specifically writing a story where the characters are able to fight against and interact on an uneven footing with the horror, then it's not really that scary, is it? Your characters kind of have to be the underdogs for things to really be horrific, you know? There's plenty of works that have horror elements in them, for example, like Supernatural or Ghostbusters, but neither of those are horror shows, are they? Supernatural is kind of urban fantasy action, and Ghostbusters is a comedy, because the characters are able to fight with the scary stuff. So what do you kind of do with that in this kind of genre? And I think the answer is to just not go for scary. Horror can be scary, and there's a lot of good scary horror and a lot of value in that, but you can also just go for using the aesthetic and the stuff that's in horror with a different kind of intention. So that's kind of what I've been brainstorming. I've been doing a bit of world building in my head for, as this Google Doc is titled, Eldritch Horror Magical Girls. And that's what I want to think about world building today. So inspiration-wise, I've talked previously on stream about Catalepsis, which I mentioned earlier in my presentation as well, which is a web serial about someone in what very much is a horror setting, and that story does do actual horror. Like, they are consistently fighting against things that are much bigger, much stronger, much scarier than they are, but includes progression fantasy elements in the sense that our main character does get consistently stronger and kind of takes on certain horror traits of their own. Have I read Sleepless Domain, the Magical Girl webcomic? Yes, but years ago. I don't know how much further along the story is by now. It wasn't that far good in, I think, when I started reading it. It's so good, it's a Magical Girl webcomic with a twist. Yeah, I think the shall we call it an inciting incident that changes our main character's situation, can certainly be described as a twist. Things get very interesting in there very quickly. But yeah, even though I haven't read that in a while, let's add that as well to the list of influences. Sleepless Domain. Then I talked earlier about my current obsession, the Murder Drones series on YouTube. Still can't believe we've gotten a final episode on that, because it's so incredible and I wish we could get infinitely more. And then from Murder Drones, an earlier work by Liam Vickers, the Design series, his kind of written horror series that he then read out / voice acted, put into audio format on his YouTube channel. So Catalepsis is kind of almost traditional horror, but sometimes the characters have the upper hand. Sleepless Domain is magical girls, but things go horribly wrong. Along the same lines, I guess we can't really make a magical girl setting that includes dark elements without talking about Puella Magi Madoka Magica, the origin of dark magical girl stories. I don't know if it was the first, but I wager it was the first that managed to get seriously popular. And I'll just put Ditto. No, not like that. There we go, Ditto marks. Murder Drones. A horror comedy, primarily. Murder Drones is mostly light-hearted. From the characters' perspectives, there's lots of terrible things happening in the background to other people, but from the characters' perspectives, it's mostly a comedy show. Horror comedy, but occasionally gets very scary. I didn't personally find myself scared of anything of it, but the tone of the show really snaps back to, hey, this is an actual serious moment, quite effectively every now and then. It's kind of a reverse of Catalepsis, where Catalepsis is mostly, hey, this is kind of serious and these characters are in real danger, and if they don't sort this out, they're going to die. But then every now and then it's like, okay, but actually also our main character is basically an eldritch god herself at this point, and if some minor haunting comes along, she can tell it to sod off. Whereas Murder Drones is mostly, hey, this is played for laughs, but every now and then someone is like experiencing something genuinely traumatic. And it does the balance of that really well. And then the design series, I'm not even sure how to put that. The design series is real horror, but one MC is experiencing, oh god, that's not even slightly how you spell experiencing, experiencing the horror, and the other is the horror. I love Madoka Magica, and I will defend Homura with my dying breath. She did nothing wrong. Interesting take, Izzy. Interesting take. I haven't seen all of the Madoka Magica franchise. I know that there is stuff that happens in the movies that has people questioning the morality of Homura, but based on just the initial show itself, I will side with you there. Yeah, Homura did nothing wrong. She was just trying her best. She may be a disaster and have caused a disaster or two on accident, but she is just trying her best. Props to her. We love tragic heroes. So, with kind of these influences plus whatever else I've had in my head recently and just didn't remember to write down, what exactly do I want to write? I think I want to write something that is super strong on the horror aesthetic. I think it's going to be quite a detailed and gory story. But I'm going to write very descriptive on all the terrible things that happen, but they will be happening to other people primarily, or if our main characters are having something that would be horror otherwise happen to them, it's not something actually bad for them, it will probably be something that they're doing themselves. So the premise that or kind of the inciting incident that I'm imagining is we have a regular person who gets dragged into a, or not dragged into, who encounters a supernatural event, gets saved by an SCP-like organization, which I remember talking about a lot in that previous video. I should have a quick look on the Obsidian Vaults or what I wrote down in instruments-wise. SCP Foundation, Control, Rimworld Anomaly, Catalepsis, yeah, similar stuff. Okay, let's put SCP Foundation and yeah, let's put all of those onto this list as well. The SCP Foundation, Rimworld Anomaly, and the video game Control. Yes, let's put these on there. So an SCP style or control style organization, like a government organization for dealing with supernatural stuff, intervenes, solves the anomaly, saves our initial main character. They offer her a job, which is a pretty standard kind of, not quite cliche, but pretty standard kind of opening for this style of story, where someone gets dragged into some nonsense, they manage to make it out the other side, and whoever was involved goes like, hey, you handled yourself pretty well, you want to join our weird, semi-magical organization? But then, before she can join, she also gets offered a magical girl contract by a, what are we going to call them? Let's use Familiar for now. Familiar, who was involved in the incident. In the end, she half accepts both offers and works as a magical girl with ties to the organization. There we go. That's basically the premise. Needs to be reworded significantly, and there's a lot more detail to it, but that's the basic kind of plot hook that I'm thinking of, because I think it would be super duper funny, and it gives me plenty of room to bring in different kind of elements and different styles of how to approach the horror. Because with magical girls, obviously the basic kind of pink cute aesthetic makes it all the more, I'm gonna say all the more funny, some people might say all the more scary when the horror stuff comes in. You know, that abrupt shift from happy-go-lucky cutesy to oh my god, what is happening, was a big part of what made Madoka Magica work so well, and similarly for Sleepless Domain. And I think we can draw on that here, but I think even more than that, in terms of the variety of threats you can encounter, the style of enemy and anomaly you find in a magical girl genre, in a more kind of supernatural / eldritch horror genre, and in a SCP or stalker or control style anomaly horror genre, are very, very different. And I think this is a good setup to mess around with all of them, and I think it will be very interesting. Real quick, it does occur to me that what we are doing now is completely unrelated to all my birthday stuff at the start of the stream, so let me just change the stream title to something else. World building horror magical girl. There we go. World building horror magical. Done. New stream title. Which also reminds me, tangentially, another influence here is Necronica, which is a tabletop RPG that I remember reading the rulebook for quite a while ago. That's led to some incredible art, and it inspired Catalepsis. Rudy Borealis, thank you for following. I just stopped by to wish you a happy birthday, have a nice day. Thank you very much, it's very, very appreciated. We were moving on from the birthday stuff earlier into just some regular stream and some writing and world building, because that's what I'm all about. And I figured for my birthday, I mean, I pick what I do on stream anyway, but for my birthday I figured I would just indulge myself and choose what I'm gonna do during the stream rather than putting it on a schedule and sticking to it. We've ended up with writing. But yeah, Necronica. I couldn't comment on Necronica as an actual tabletop RPG system, but in terms of its aesthetic and what it's inspired, I said a moment ago it inspired Catalepsis. That's incorrect. It inspired Necroepilogos, which is another series by the same author as Catalepsis. They are both very, very good. One of them is urban fantasy horror, that's Catalepsis, and one of them is post-apocalypse horror, if you're interested at all. So yeah, this kind of setup will allow us to indulge in a lot of different styles of what kind of supernatural threats we put in there. I think overall, because I don't tend to particularly get scared and I wouldn't know how to write something to scare someone else, the tone I want to go for this is going to be very horror comedy. I think that fits best in terms of putting very strong characters into a horror setup. Character-wise, I've got an idea for a couple of them already. So the Magical Girl team itself, I think it might grow over the course of this series, but the starting core members are going to be our main character, who gets dragged into all this by coincidence. Then we're going to have the main character's best friend, who is an idiot. I don't know how to expand on that point right now, because I have a very, very specific image in mind, inspired by a few obscure things that would take like an hour to go through and explain, but just bear with me and believe me, but when I say that this is a very funny premise. The main character's best friend, who is an idiot, but is extremely dangerous once she becomes a magical girl. She gets offered the position by the MC, since the familiar asks her if there is anyone she would want to work with. I'm not sure on that one yet. I think it might almost be funnier if the familiar tells her later, hey, since we hired you, we also approached your friend. Good news, you're gonna get to work together. And her reaction is, you gave that person this kind of power? Are you quite sure? But I've got to decide later on. I think this might also be good. And then the third member, a regular non-involved in horror magical girl, who gets brought in to train the newbies. And this is another part of why this entire idea has just been stuck in my head, why I haven't been able to get it out there, and I keep dwelling on it, because I have so many ideas all the time about different sort of world building seeds, little starting points that could grow into a full setting if I gave them the time. But normally, I either cannibalize them to use in other settings, or just kind of forget them and move on once I move on from the thing that inspired the idea in the first place. But this has been stuck in my head for ages, because I think it would just be so funny. Essentially, we have our main character, it gets involved with some kind of anomaly, and then, as is the way in this type of story, both in SCP and in Control, and in various other things I've read like that, she, for whatever reason, can handle the anomalies better than most people, you know? She doesn't go mad, or she has some kind of psychic power or something like that. In this case, what I'm thinking of doing is leaning really hard into the eldritch and body horror aspects, strongly inspired by Necronica and Necroepilogos. Let me put down a list here as well. Necroepilogos. Yeah, strongly inspired by these two works. What did I just say a moment ago? Sorry, my mind's completely blanked. I stopped to type and my thought went away. The horror with body horror elements inspired by these things. Right, so our main character is going to get some kind of terrible eldritch thing implanted in them or whatever. She encounters the anomaly, she gets horrible monster powers, and then gets approached by the magical girl familiar, who gives her just regular sparkly cute magical girl magic, and now she's got both. Then her best friend gets less of a dose of eldritch, but still some, plus the magical girl powers, and then the third one is just an actual regular magical girl. She's just full on cute sparkles. Her normal enemies are like, I don't know, alternate universe evil selves who've come to invade our reality, or whatever monster of the week happens to be. Some, I don't know, the intergalactic bounty hunter who's landed on Earth and is trying to kidnap someone. All the really silly, over-the-top magical girl and like Power Ranger Sentai style enemies, that kind of thing. And now suddenly she's been dragged into this and now has to deal with like a toaster that teleports people's intestines into a different dimension or some nonsense like that, you know. The real dumb SCP articles. The only question is, how much of it really do I want to play straight? Because that will kind of determine... Like, we've opened doors by putting these things together, by putting together the eldritch horror style anomaly that they encounter, the more clinical scientific style anomalies that we get from the SCP Foundation influence and having an organization, and the, I guess, emotional horror style stuff that we get from the dark magical girl genre. That opens a lot of doors. Now we have to decide how much do we want to play it straight, because that will close doors. There are certain threats that only work if we don't take them seriously. There are other threats that only work if we do take them seriously. We will have a mix of both as time goes on, but exactly how much of each and the extent to which we can go will be determined by the overall tone we set, and I think much of that will come from how seriously we take the horrors, you know. If our main characters walk in somewhere and see someone get ripped straight in half in front of their eyes, do they scream and freak out, or do they play it off, or do they not even notice and move straight on to hunting down the monster, you know? That kind of thing. What kind of tone? BB Toaster is my favourite character now. Well, I'm glad. I'll make sure to include them in the story at some point. Let me put a note up here. Teleport insides Toaster. There we go. I think it would be interesting to have a serious threat taken lightly and a light threat taken seriously just to fuck with people. That's an option, certainly. I was thinking, I mean, if we go along that kind of line, then I'm thinking we can do super serious, dangerous stuff, just kind of played off because the characters have a lot of raw power. They're magical girls, they've got the power of friendship. If they want to beat you, they're just going to beat you, because that's how magical girls work in, you know, non-Madoka settings. There's a web series I've been reading recently, a lit RPG called Corruption Wielder, which has a lot of that kind of thing. There's also the fantastic series Magical Girl Crystal Genocide by Ravenstagger. Let me put that on a list of inspirations as well, actually. Magical Girl Crystal Genocide. And the magical girls in that series are basically the most powerful things around, like by a wide margin. At one point, one of them is explaining to a person she's traveling with their like threat scale, and essentially she says they don't have a threat scale, they have a spooky scale, as in how spooky is the enemy that they're encountering, because it doesn't matter to them how strong it is. They are stronger, just flat out. In that world there are 12 magical girls, and one of them, shortly after getting her powers, demons try to kill her to prevent her from doing it, from hurting them, and her response is to go and basically destroy most of hell. At her weakest, because they get stronger as time goes on, at her absolute weakest, shortly after getting her powers, she travels through hell and thrashes the place, because no one can stop them. So I think our character should be strong in a direct fight. There we go, so magical girls, especially eldritch monster ones, are very strong in a direct fight. So as he said, they're very serious threats we can take very lightly. Light threats taken seriously, they are geared towards straight fights to such an extent that their magic is very inflexible. Why are you marking this as not right spelling? They are geared towards straight fights to such an extent that their magic is very inflexible. I'm not going to call it rigid, I'm going to say inflexible specifically. They've got room to maneuver and to do more stuff, but it's very focused in one kind of direction. And as a result, they struggle with the weaker but more esoteric anomalies. So for example, the is it also a toaster? Is that why I thought of toaster earlier? From SCP, the toaster where you can't describe it as a separate object. Anyone who talks about the toaster talks as if they were the toaster. They go, instead of it is a insert thing, they go I am a insert thing. And that's just kind of weird and funky, but not super dangerous, and something that the magical girls would really struggle with solving. So we see them walk into a room, there's some kind of demon horror eating a person, they fight it, gruesomely destroy the thing, and then spend the next however long trying to figure out how to get past the funny jack-in-the-box that every time they step too close it pops open and time winds back, teleporting them back a few meters. And they don't know what to do about it because it's not a problem they can just hit. That's the kind of dynamic I'm imagining here. Yeah, Vitosa, that makes you think you're Vitosa. Exactly, that's a very funny, very dumb anomaly from SCP. I'm definitely going to have to do some pretty heavy reading of the SCP wiki to come up with inspiration and ideas for this kind of thing. I feel like there was something I thought of a minute ago that I wanted to also add to the inspirations list, but it's escaped me now. What was I talking and thinking about? Magical girls, what their powers are. Then I thought of Magical Girl Crystal Genocide. And something else. Another Magical Girl series, I think? There was something about the powers and the transformation. Right, I remembered some kind of series I've read where someone undergoes various transformations. But I don't remember what it was. I think it was a web serial. I've read predominantly web serials over the last couple of years. And a horror one, and someone gets transformed in kind of eldritch ways. I'll definitely have to go look through my follow list on Royal Road later and try to remember that, because more inspiration for something like this is always good. You don't want to get super inspired by one thing and then end up basically plagiarizing it. You want to find something cool, look for all the similar works you can, and then if you draw a little bit of inspiration from everywhere, you can come out with something completely new at the end. I know people always like to say there's like nothing original anymore and everything's been done before, but I feel like they focus too much on individual components of a piece of fiction. And yeah, sure, every individual component you can probably point to somewhere else where something similar has been done. But can you show somewhere else where it's done the same thing, where it's combined them the same way? Highly unlikely. Most things, I assert, are actually very original, and should be praised for being so. I think people let themselves get scared and concerned about originality too much, and it really cripples some people's ability to write. That's actually something I want to do another video about in the future, which is mindsets and how much they can affect your creativity and stuff like that. You know, some people are almost scared to try creating for various reasons, and it's really, in my opinion, important to figure out those reasons and show them how to move past them, you know, show them how to find the motivation and inspiration to do some creative work. Because it's a shame to have all these ideas go completely unused. So, to add some more onto this, alright, there was one more. I'm going with kind of broad strokes aesthetics here when I'm describing these characters. I don't have an exact personality in mind. I haven't picked their names yet or anything. Completely sleep deprived girl doing her best. This one is entirely inspired by just this one random image I happened to see the other day. I mentioned this earlier, that lots of my world building ideas have come from me seeing cool art and going like, okay, how do I describe a story that explains the powers that we're seeing in this picture? And I had a very similar experience here. I saw this picture the other day of someone with a sword in this like reddish black cloak and massive bags under her eyes and this kind of slightly disconcerted expression on her face, and I thought, fantastic, you should be a magical girl. I think that would be hilarious. I can probably zoom in a little bit more here, can't I? Yeah, that still fits on screen. Yeah, so she's also going on the team. I'm thinking... This is already 4. I'm thinking the full Magical Girl team should be 7 members strong. And a full MG team should have 7 members. There's no particular reason for 7 out of everything. If you watch a lot of Magical Girl shows, you'll see that Neat Magical Girl... Nah, not neat, just, I don't know, overworked? Insomniac? I feel like she's going to be the cute one on the team, you know? We've got, like, the responsible one, the leader kind of figure, the dumb one, the cute one, the special and different one, our main character with the special and different powers. And then we can fill out a few more slots. But yeah, I think a full team should have 7. Normally I try to go for lower numbers in my hero groups. I think 4 is a good number because with only 3 men, or let's start from the beginning actually. With 1 person, it's just your regular protagonist, and you're going to need a cast of supporting characters around them anyway, which often means that you basically build a heroes party, but by a different name, you know? You've got a heroes party, but you're not referring to it as such. They just happen to be side characters that tag along. I prefer to just straight up go, here are our main characters. And as I'm talking about this, I'm remembering one of my all-time favorite shows in terms of series in terms of team dynamics, and a thing I wanted to write down earlier, which is Twig by the author Walbo. Absolutely fantastic web serial, very, very long, huge word count, where our main characters are a bunch of basically biological weapons. They're all experiments, and one of them really fits the kind of vibe that I'm going for with this series. But yes, back to the cast calculus, as the TV Tropes page calls it. 1 person, you basically have to build a team around them anyway. 2 people works for certain very specific dynamics, but I don't think I'm interested in exploring in my works at all, basically. 2 people is just kind of... They have to be really close to an extent, right? Like, if it's just the 2 of them working together, each one has to rely on the other one, which means they're either best friends, which is nice but not that interesting, or they're lovers, which I just don't want to write, or they're enemies, which is a beautiful trope, and I love it, and I love reading about it, and I've got so many enemies to lovers fanfics saved and bookmarked on my browser, but I don't want to write it. Then with 3 people, I think 3 people, even though it's so popular, in my opinion, is probably the one that works the least out of all of them. Because with 3 people, if one of them has an idea, and the other one agrees with him, then the 3rd person is just immediately outvoted. And that kind of dynamic... Like, if 2 of them get closer with each other than the 3rd, then the 3rd becomes a 3rd wheel, and kind of ruins the dynamic with their presence. And it just kind of doesn't fit together very well. I think if you've got 3 people, they have to each be very independent with very strong goals of their own, and I kind of more want to write a team that works together and sees to each other's goals and stuff like that as well, instead of purely focusing in on each individual person once. Then you get to 4, which is the number that I think works the best because it's big enough that you don't have those problems of 3 or 2 or 1 person, but you don't get into the difficulties of having to come up with all of the characters and manage all of their relationships that you do when you go to more than 4 people. Then 5 people, only 1 more than 4, it's not so many, but it's still quite a lot. And then 6 or 7. I think 7 will be the target number for a Magical Girl team, but we're probably not ever going to be at 7, or if we are, it's only going to be temporarily. One thing I do want to do with this series is, in huge amounts of my world building in the past, I will come up with all of the characters as kind of a step 1, and I tend to put like full teams together to begin with, and I think it would be a good exercise for me, and it would probably make for a stronger story if instead of throwing the whole team together right at the beginning, I introduce them one by one over time, and we can maybe have some team members leave over time as well, or focus on different things, have people come and go, maybe even come back later, that kind of thing. So I think a high team count goal, but we will probably most of the time sit around 5 or 6 members. Maybe at times even go over 7. And what that really kind of means is that I can pick 3 or 4 people to be the core cast. If you've ever watched, I've watched a lot of crime procedurals in the past, stuff like NCIS and Criminal Minds and all that kind of thing. And if you watch those, you'll find that there's a few core members that stick around, but because these are super long-running shows over a lot of seasons, actors have other stuff to do, or characters get written out, and over time the cast changes. And I think we can do that kind of thing with this kind of story really well. Both formats support it, you know? Oh, hang on a second, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. That was very loud, I'm glad I muted. Both of the formats kind of support this changing team structure with few core members, because Magical Girl teams do historically in a lot of shows grow in members over time, and do have members retire, especially as the show starts to wind down. And similarly, the kind of SCP/Control Foundation style really works well for that, both in, you know, the kind of police procedural style thing, or the more supernatural style, like if you've ever watched Doctor Who or the spin-off show Torchwood especially. That really has a similar vibe to this kind of thing. We've just got a few people who are the main characters, and then the slightly less main characters around them. So our main character, probably this one, and probably the regular one will be like the core members, then the best friend might come and go over time. I do have a few plans for her and how she's going to function in the story. And then we can have a few others that kind of get cycled through as time goes on. I think that would make for a good dynamic. And I think it would be very good for this kind of setting, because it does very much leave the door open if we have characters come and go, or character deaths. Because while I do want to play this mostly light, mostly for comedy, as I've seen in some of our inspiration work, so for example in Murder Drones quite strongly, in RimWorld Anomaly, even though it is a video game, in Magical Girl Crystal Genocide, you can play things very light for the most part, and still choose to have really serious, really hard-hitting moments come in there at different points. And it doesn't, like, neither one detracts from the other, you just have to know how far to take it and how to balance it. So having a few loose cast members, but still important cast members, gives us people that we can basically kill off. Or not kill off, and just threaten to. I do think it would be very funny to kind of put in, you know, set all of the flags, put in the implication that someone's about to meet their end, maybe kill off a few tertiary side characters, but not quite commit to the main character death, and just see how much the audience kind of sweats over it, you know? Make them a little worried if their favourite is going to be the one that bites the bullet. Then, what else? Aesthetics, yes. Always gotta come back to the aesthetics, because I love them. For our main character, I want her weapon, specifically, to be a thing that I've seen now in 2 different Eldritch Horror settings, so I think it might just be a staple at this point, which is basically the giant pizza cutter. I don't know if you've seen this, but in Bloodborne, and I think now also in Elden Ring, one of the weapons you can find is this just giant spinny saw blade on a stick. And in Arknights, the gacha game, one of the characters, Spectre, her weapon similarly is this giant spinny thing on a stick, and they make for fantastic weapons, and I think they suit the horror aesthetic beautifully. I can actually probably find a picture, can't I? Arknights, Skadi. Not Skadi, they're both from the same faction. Spectre, that's the one. Yeah, this thing. This kind of thing is the weapon that I want to give our main character. Similar to... I don't know what the weapon is actually called in Bloodborne, so I'm just going to search for Bloodborne Pizza Cutter. There it is. The community knows what I'm on about, it's the pizza cutter. It's spinny blade on stick, it's a pizza cutter. And I think it looks fantastic. So that's what we're going to be giving our main character as a weapon. For the best friend, she's going to draw heavily on the character that's inspired her and her personality, so her weapon is going to be a scythe. I'm not actually going to name the character she's inspired by, because I think it would show too much about who she is as a character if I told you who she is, and if I actually end up writing this, then I want there to be some, figuring things out as the story progresses. If I do write it and decide that it's good enough, then I'll publish it probably on Royal Road. If not, if I don't write it, then obviously you won't hear about this again. And if I write it and I don't particularly like it, then I will probably publish it on Tumblr. I do have a Tumblr account that I haven't used very much, unfortunately. I've just been busy, but I've got I've got 2 little bits of creative writing on there for anyone who wants to check that out. The sleep-deprived, overworked one. The picture I saw that inspired this character and what I've come up with for her had a sword. And swords are pretty cool. There's plenty of more classic magical girls who wielded swords instead of wands. Also, Sin from the Murder Drones finale was using a sword and was very, very cool. I think we can stick with a sword for the time being. Wields a sword, just that. And then our non-horror magical girl will be... Do we go lean full in on the pink frill aesthetic and give her a magic wand? Full pink frills and magic wand. That can still be horror, the cutesy character. The VTuber Suzuhara Lulu, now unfortunately graduated. Really cutesy, like absolutely adorable, her model. Look at her, she's frills everywhere, she's so cute. She was also, I think in all of Nijisanji, like one of the most hardcore horror associated talents out there. Just because of the aura she gave off, some of the things she said, the way she conducted herself, she really, really sold the horror aesthetic. At one point, a few of the talents arranged this fantasy tournament. It was basically like 2 or 3 of them doing the shoutcasting, what's it called? Commentating, there we go. Commentating a tournament that wasn't actually happening. It was them pretending they were watching a tournament and commentating on it. And amongst all of the contestants, which included like heroes from another world with a legendary sword and an archmage and a demon and all sorts of stuff, the most powerful and most dangerous contestant was the art student Suzuhara Lulu. So pink frills and horror definitely go together. Because it's that juxtaposition, It's the cutesy thing next to very much not cutesy thing. if we go onto Twitter real quick and find... where is she? Find Juniper Actius's account and look at the art she's posted and hope that... I'm pretty sure Juniper doesn't post anything not safe for work. Plenty of VTubers do, so you always have to be careful opening Twitter. But yeah, like, Juniper's real big on the cute but also like will bite you in the neck and kill you aesthetic. That's a real big thing in her art. She's done this series recently where it's a girl alone in an empty city inhabited by monsters that are like clones of her trying to kill her. And that very much also fits the same kind of aesthetic. Yeah, this. I don't know what Twitch's tolerance for gore is, but they do allow like horror games, so it can't be that bad. So that's what we can do with her. I don't know what kind of story arc the classical magical girl is going to have yet, because obviously there will be some adjusting over time as she gets used to her new company and used to interacting with the people that she'll be working with. I don't think I'm going to throw her full cold into the deep end. It won't be like, oh, you've been used to fighting whatever your evil villain group is, and now you find out that monsters and horrors are real. She'll know about that kind of stuff. It just won't have been her job to deal with it, and now it is. So, does she embrace it? Does she become like the rest of the team? Does she try to make the rest of the team more like her? Lots of options there. I have a rough outline in my head of like the events of the first book, what kind of stuff I want to have happen at the start of the story. Which I'm not going to share here, that will be kept as a little surprise for you, no spoilers. But the outline kind of includes events that will happen. I haven't decided yet into what the character arcs and what the actual detail specifics are going to be. Because I can have those events happen and then have the characters react and interact with them in a dozen different ways. It doesn't necessarily... You know, the story wants to be tied pretty well into the characters, their motivations, their reactions, their arcs, because that makes it better, but you can set up a premise first and then figure out how it's going to come together later. There's a lot of, you know, if the story structure is the skeleton and you want to put some meat on the bones, there's a lot of different ways you can arrange it. Bring the classic MG villain group back and make them Eldritch. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Whether it's that they were Eldritch from the start, or whether they get infected with the Eldritch, whether they become, you know, more dangerous, or if they see her with these guys and go, damn, we need to get in on some of that type of power. Definitely an option. Could also be very funny, you know, we show one scene with her fighting her old enemies in the regular style, so it's all non-lethal sparkle beams, and then one of them pulls out an eldritch weapon and our scythe wielder teleports over and slices them straight in half. There's definitely a lot of room to play with there. I will primarily, I think, be playing things for laughs in this. A super serious style of story, that was a little too much of the S sound there, but a really serious style, I think it's just not quite my thing. I do enjoy that, and I have world built the kind of premise for more serious stories before, but when I do serious, it's pretty much always political drama. That's just kind of a thing that I like when I'm doing serious writing. It's always political drama. Not so much anything like this. Okay, so we have a decent outline here. We've got our influences, we've got the kind of inciting incident, an idea of who some of our characters are going to be, we've got a starting of a story structure, or story format at least, and we have our kind of tone. And I think that part is really important. The aesthetic and the tone lots of people who make full-on guides talking about like how storytelling and production works in a professional setting, you know, full-on actual production in a studio or whatever. They'll talk about like a world-building Bible or something like that, the design document, which lays out what the parameters are for your story. You know, these are you can add new stuff, you can do new things, but it has to fit within these parameters that we set at the very, very start. And that's kind of what this is. This is here's the theme we're going for. Now go and do world building that fits within this starting theme. And I think with theme established, we are gonna go ahead and bring the stream to a close here. We went another little hour over after the unfortunate interruption in the middle from the brief power outage. I will have to investigate what caused that. I went out of the room quickly to check if anyone knew, and the best guess I got is that we're expecting thunderstorms and that might be causing a power issue, but the sky outside doesn't look that bad, and if we're expecting them, they haven't started yet, so I don't think that should have caused a power outage. So I am very concerned because of all the things that like can go wrong in a house, internet dropping and power outage are obviously the worst for me as a VTuber. Really don't want that to be happening. Now then, let me have a look on the raid menu. Is anyone I follow live? Are they up to anything? There's a few people, but anyone I can raid into? No one's, I mean, the list of reading and writing and world building related VTubers is unfortunately very short. There are not a lot of options here. Okay, here's someone that I started watching recently just because she happened to be in the same time zone. Currently doing a... what is this? Lipathon? Oh, I think she's actually asleep and this is just kind of waiting for her to come back at the moment. Yeah, chat is playing some games in the background. Okay, no, I won't send you to a streamer who's not actually there at the moment. Better find somebody else. Okay, Twitch suggests this person who's doing just chatting and watching some horror stuff. Never heard of them before, but hey, we were just talking about horror, so if you want a little more, then here it is. I'm going to send you on over to them. Thank you very much for joining me today for the stream. Thank you very much for all of the birthday well wishes. They are well appreciated. Really nice to see some people here today. Really nice to have people active in chat. I did have a very good Book of Hours stream the other day where we had a few people chatting, and it's so nice. I mean, I've been doing this a few months and I've gotten perfectly capable of just talking and talking and talking to myself, and it's still really enjoyable. But I gotta be honest, I got into this because I love having and building a community, because I really enjoy that aspect of VTubing and content creation. So seeing more people around here and having more people to talk and interact with has been fantastic. Thank all of you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.